ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الحمد لله الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Welcome everybody from around the world. My name is Bilal Abdul Kareem and this is the BAK Show, where we discuss the things which are important to you and to the Muslim Ummah at large. Of course, I'm your host, Bilal Abdul Kareem, and I'm coming at you live from northern Syria. Everybody, we need to discuss some things here today. The chief thing that we're going to be talking about here today is Suwayda. Suwayda is in the southern part of the country, and we're going to be looking for your questions, your comments, and or your concerns. Okay, we're going to get started here. Tonight's show is not going to be pretty. I'm going to be honest with everybody here today. It's not going to be pretty. Some people are going to be angry. Some people are going to be furious. Some people are going to get their feelings hurt. But there's really no way around it. I'm here to bring you the facts on the ground, and you can make your own determinations in terms of what you do or don't think is a good idea. All right, let's get started here. First of all, it's the way that most people know that they've heard this in the news recently. Now, we're going to give you a recap in terms of what took place, how we got to where we are, who were the winners and who were the losers. Okay, first of all, we have to understand a few things according to the map. This is SDF-controlled areas. Those are the Kurdish militia tribes. This is the territory under the control of Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara, formerly known as Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani. This is the area that we're going to need to talk about down here. This is Israeli-occupied territory. This is Quneitra, and 95% of it is in the hands of the Israelis. Now, we're talking about Suwayda governorate. This area is right on the borders of Israel. And there's a guy there whose name is Hikmat al-Hijri. This is a Druze spiritual leader, and he is extremely pro-Israel. He actually wants for Suwayda to be a part of greater Israel. He is a Syrian, but he desires to be a part of the greater Israel project. Now, that is clear, we're going to go and we're going to take a look and see what exactly took place. Bang. Look at this. They kind of zoomed into this the governorate of Suwayda. Okay, so this is Tel Atiq, Tel Sheikhan, Shahaba, a major town center, the city of Suwayda, and this is what it looks like. Now, what happened was that a Druze businessman was accosted on the road between Suwayda and Damascus. Up until now, we don't know who those individuals were, but because there was bad blood between the Bedouin community, which are Sunni, and the Druze community, it was assumed that it came from the Sunni community. The Druze militia forces went into action, and they began to push forward, and this is what they were doing. They were pushing in this direction, going into Sunni villages. They were arresting whole families. I'm talking about the men, the women, and the children. They were arresting them all. But so what the Bedouin tribes did is they called in Ahmed al-Shara to send his forces in. Now, bear something in mind. Ahmed al-Shara has not had any forces in Suwayda for months, because when he did try to send someone there to govern the affairs in Suwayda, he got kidnapped and was sent back to Damascus. He was unharmed, but he was sent back to Damascus. Okay, so those Druze tribes were pushing in that direction. Now, once they called in Ahmed al-Shara's forces, they came from Syrian government-controlled areas, Damascus, and pushed in towards the city of Suwayda, and they took most of the territory into Suwayda. They even went even further than that. But then, all of a sudden, someone must have made a phone call, because the convoys of cars that were going there of the security men from Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani, a couple of them got hit by Israeli airstrikes, because they said they don't want any armed militants accosting the Druze community. which is basically false because what Netanyahu wants is a man that they control, which is Hajri, running the show here in Suwayda. That was his goal. And he knew that with the forces pushing forward, that Hajri was in a lot of trouble. So all of a sudden, it stopped. There was a deal that was cut. Up until now, we don't know the details of it. And this happened. All of Abu Muhammad Jolani, Ahmed Shah's forces completely pulled out. They pulled out of the area. That exposed the Bedouin tribes to reprisal attacks from the Druze militia forces. And this is what it looked like. Throwing Sunni Muslims from buildings. Mass exodus. Now, when this happened, the Bedouins had no alternative because they couldn't call the government because they just left. So what they did is they called on their brethren, tribal members from around the country, and they showed up in force. There were tens of thousands of them that showed up. They were not well equipped. They were not a cohesive fighting unit, but there were so many of them that they were hungry to be able to protect their brethren that they fought and they took over a good amount of territory. Okay, now once that happened, the security forces, Ahmed Shah's government, decided to plug itself back into the fray. On the 20th of July, the Syrian internal security forces have since set up checkpoints around Suwayda. Uh-oh, something's happening here. Basically what happened was Ahmed Shah's forces then came in, set up checkpoints. They told the Bedouin tribes, hey, you guys have done a great job, you guys are great, and everything. You guys pull back. There's a ceasefire deal that's going to be in place. We're taking over from here, so you guys pull back your positions. Okay, that is the official thing that the Bedouin tribes were told. Well, they pulled back, but then the city of Suwayda has now been cleared of all tribal fighters, and clashes within the city's neighborhoods have been brought to a halt. Okay, they pulled back, but what they did is they set up checkpoints so that once they pulled out, they couldn't come back in. Once they pulled out, they could not get back in. And on the 21st, it says Ahmed Delat, which is the commander of internal security in Suwayda, representing the internal ministry, he said, quote, we have imposed a security cordon in the vicinity of Suwayda to keep it secure and to stop the fighting there. Well, the Bedouin tribes weren't happy about this at all because they were extremely unhappy because they were seeing that territory that they had taken and turned over to the security forces miraculously were being occupied again by Hajri's forces just several hours later. It happened in several different locations. And that was when they began to be agitated. This is a report that I did while outside of one of the masjids in just outside of Suwayda. Take a look.
شو المشكلة؟ شو المشكلة؟ أخي المشكلة إنه أساس في أسرة وفي مفاوضات بين طلعت البولمنات فاضية وطلعت اليوين فاضية ولا في لا أسرة ولا مخلينا نفوت احنا نحرر الأسرة. بدنا نعرف إن أسرة ولا لا. هاي الأمة كلها ناطرة ساحة الجهاد جوا. احنا بدنا أسرة ما يخلونا نفوت من العام. احنا هلا نقلب على من العام ونفوت. وهذا اللي عندي. معاهم للساعة 5 الفجر. ولا الساعة 5 الفجر ما موجودة إلى قيام الساعة. الله تحرر سويدة. الموت الله تحرر سويدة. من خنازير الكفار. الموت والله فشيخ. والله تكبير. وجه رسالة أخواننا المسلمين.
فوالله سنأتيهم برجال تعشق الموت وبالذبح والموت كما وعدنا الله سبحانه وتعالى. أيها الأخوان، أنفروا خفافا وثقالا وجاهدوا بأموالكم وأنفسكم في سبيل الله، ذلكم خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. كنا اليوم نعلم يا شباب أدروس هؤلاء يتولون إسرائيل، يريد يفوتون إسرائيل علينا، ما نرضى كلياتنا. تكبير!
That was taken just after Maghrib Salat in a place called Busra Harir, just outside of the governorate of Suwayda. At 2 a.m. that night, the Amin al-Am, the security forces, came in and told the Bedouin fighters who were staying in the masjid, and there were a lot of them, because a lot of them were not native to the area, and they needed a place to stay, and they stayed in the masjid, and they were told that they had to leave. So systemically, the Bedouin fighters were moved out of the area and pushed back from fighting inside of Suwayda. Now, it says here, we have imposed a security cordon in the vicinity of Suwayda to keep it secure and to stop fighting there. But let's take a look here. This is the map. 90% of Suwayda is in the hands of al-Hajri's Druze militia, Israeli-backed forces. It's not clear how it went from the Bedouin tribes coming, first of all, from Jolani's forces pulling out, exposing the people to reprisal attacks. Then the Bedouin tribes came in, took territory, and the people were under their protection. Then the security forces got back into the fray, told the Bedouin tribes to come out of those territories and that they would take care of it. And then, in addition to that, they ended up leaving those territories, and Hajri's forces came back into the territory. And to add insult to injury, the cordons and security checkpoints were set up so that the Bedouin forces, once they left, they couldn't get back in. And now we're stuck with a situation wherein 90% of the Bedouin Sunnis from Suwayda are refugees in Dara, and they had to leave because they can't live under the rule of Hikmat al-Hajri. That was a very, very difficult situation for the Sunni tribes, because for the Sunni Bedouins, because they have no place to go, so they had to leave their homes. They because Ahmed Shah's forces are not protecting them. The Ahmed Shah's forces pulled the Bedouin tribes out, so the prospects of them returning home are just not there. Okay, now this has been a bad week for a lot of different reasons. Going back just this past Friday morning, there was an attack that took place in Al-Bab. We're going to take a look at it. I want you to take a look at this video. It's related, but take a look at this video. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My name is Bilal Abdul Karim for OGN. Today, we're going to discuss an operation which took place in the Al-Bab area of northern Syria on the Turkish border. Let's get started. First of all, the participants were Ahmed al-Shara, the new president of Syria, and his security forces, and none other than the United States military. They carried out a joint operation against those suspected to be ISIS members and leaders. Let's take a look and see what the United States CENTCOM, the United States military, had to say about the operation to establish that indeed it did take place. They said, quote, early this morning in Al-Bab, Syria, now we're talking about approximately 2:15 local time, Friday morning. Early this morning in Al-Bab, Syria, CENTCOM forces conducted a raid resulting in the death of senior ISIS leader Dihya Zawba Muslih al-Hardani and his two adult ISIS-affiliated sons. These ISIS individuals posed a threat to U.S. and coalition forces as well as the new Syrian government. We will continue to relentlessly pursue ISIS terrorists alongside our partners and allies. End quote. This is a statement by General Michael Eric Kurilla, U.S. Central Command Commander. Okay, brothers and sisters, let's unpack this just a little bit. Issue number one, firstly and foremostly, we're not going to talk about the Islamic ruling of bringing in the non-Muslim United States forces into the fray, but we're going to discuss how is it possible that Ahmed al-Shara could put together alongside U.S. military forces the Muslims from his security services to carry out a joint operation. How this is possible, I am not certain. Why? Because the United States is arming, bankrolling, politically covering, and funding a genocide just some kilometers away from Syria, because it's all Bilad al-Sham, and of course we're talking about Gaza. How is it possible that those forces could be allowed to operate inside of Syria? Now, as it states here, it says that it also threatened the new Syrian government. Now, if these individuals, and I cannot vouch for them, of course, I have no idea who these people are, but if they are ISIS operatives, was it not possible for Ahmed al-Shara's forces to go and arrest them? Which brings us to the second issue. This entire revolution was all about justice. Now, the problem that I'm having here is that if it's about justice, then why were these people not given an opportunity to defend themselves in court? Was it impossible to arrest one guy and two sons? I find that to be difficult to believe, that it's impossible to arrest these individuals. Why is it that the Americans should be allowed to come in and pull off a kill operation inside of Syrian territory? Now, you've got to remember something. Abu Muhammad al-Jawlani, Ahmed al-Shara, he himself was on a global terrorist list just as recently as last year. He was just released from that terrorist list. What if 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, he was targeted in a kill operation where he never had an opportunity to show that he really wasn't a terrorist? And I've never thought that Abu Muhammad Jawlani was a terrorist. I differ with him in many things, many of them Islamic, but I never thought him to be a terrorist. But if it would have happened the way that this happened under his watch, he himself would have been killed without having an opportunity to exonerate himself. This is a major, major violation of justice and Islamic jurisprudence. And I think that the Syrian people are owed an explanation as to why this was allowed to take place on their soil. My name is Bilal Abdul Kareem. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. All right, everybody. That was a report that was filed just 2 days ago. So what's the relation to all of this? The relation to all of this is that Ahmed al-Shara, Abu Muhammad Jawlani, is not going to be able to lead this country without the Syrian people. It's just not going to happen. And I think what is needed is an explanation in terms of where this is all going. I think an explanation is owed to the Syrian people in terms of why did they stop the Bedouin tribes from fighting inside of Suwayda to protect the Sunni Muslims there. Why did that happen? And now that 90% of the territory is in the hands of aggressor, the Israeli-backed Hajri, what is the plan now? Is it that we're going to just forget about Suwayda, or are his forces gearing up to go back in? There has to be an explanation, because if we go back to the days where governments or leaders can just do whatever they want and you just have to deal with it or you get locked up and all, then we haven't really accomplished much with this revolution. Now, I myself may be putting myself in jeopardy by saying some of the things that I'm saying, but I'm going to say this, that after 1 million people have been dead, half of the population was displaced, we've got to stand up and say something at some point. And we're only saying at this juncture is that we are owed an explanation. This attack, which took place here, why were the Americans involved? Why was it necessary to call them in? These are genociders. Why are they operating with weapons? They shouldn't even be in Syria, let alone that they should be bringing in attack helicopters and attacking anybody. And if they're going after a couple of ISIS operatives, then let them go, then let Abu Muhammad Jolani's forces go after them. Why was it necessary to bring them in? I think that the Syrian people are owed an explanation because for years, Abu Muhammad Jolani has stated that the American military is evil, the American military is against all kinds of good, against the Sharia. He himself was a prisoner in Camp Bucca in Iraq. I mean, have we forgotten about Iraq? Have we forgotten about Afghanistan? Have we forgotten about Yemen? Have we forgotten about all of the people who were killed in the Gaza genocide that's taking place? And now you're carrying out joint operations with him? An explanation is required. Okay, let's go and take a look and see what your questions are. Oh, first question is, I'm not sure I can trust Ahmed Shara. It seems he changes his clothes to suit the weather. One day he is a mujahid, another day a diplomat meeting Trump. Okay, you know what? I'm going to say only this, an explanation is required. Maybe there's some logical explanation for all of this, or there's something that we're missing. But just to be saying that the kuffar of American military forces are evil and they are against the Sharia and they're against Islam and it is haram to work with them. It was even at one point where he was asserting that working with the Turkish military was against Islamic principles. But now he's working with the Americans. I'm only saying that an explanation is required. Okay, and so in terms of trusting him or not trusting him, that's a personal decision. But I'm saying that the Syrian people are owed an explanation because we've got to turn the corner from the days of leaders being allowed to do whatever they want without any accountability to the people. Now, next, we've got here German Force, who says, Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Why would Israel and Hikmat-e-Hijri terrorists suddenly stop and engage in ceasefire talks with Ahmed al-Shara when they can just keep attacking and roll over Damascus? What's the leverage? It continues, there must be something why they suddenly stopped temporarily. Okay. Firstly, we have to look at something here. Why would they negotiate with Ahmed al-Shara now? Well, I don't think they're going to negotiate. They ain't been negotiating up until now. There's no reason to start now. Why? Because they have 95% of the territory, 90% of the territory. What's there to talk about? They have it. They have the Israelis backing them, and the Israelis don't want Ahmed al-Shara's forces to be on that border. Ahmed al-Shara's forces have already worked against the tribes and the work that they put in those territories. And there are a lot of Amin al-Am or security forces which were injured. I'm talking about hundreds which were injured. I said hundreds which were injured according to hospital records. That work was undone by Ahmed al-Shara's security forces. Why did that happen? We're not saying anything about it. We're just saying that we're owed an explanation because we want to get behind Ahmed Shara and make sure that this country is secure. That's going to take the participation of the Syrian people in general. But it's not going to happen when there's no trust for the leadership because they're starting to do things that they probably shouldn't be doing, or they're giving no explanation for it. Now, all righty, next up here, we've got Asma Hamsi. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, we've got Nidush here. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, lots of salams here today. We've got Amina Jamila. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Very, very good. All right, now let's take a look and see what Awario says. Saw a video of a huge line in Suwayda for bread. Will it be cut off from the rest of Syria? It should be IMO, but what will they do about it? I suppose that would be. I believe that what we're seeing now is the dismemberment of Syria. I'm looking at the map right here. With Hejri's forces in control here, with the Israeli forces in control there, there's only Daraa right here, and there are no government troops occupying that territory. As Benjamin Netanyahu said back in March, he would not allow any government, armed government troops on the southern border of Syria, the northern border of Israel, and that has been largely complied by Ahmed Shara. So literally, they could just take a territory right along here, and that entire southern part of Syria would be completely gone and lost to the Israelis. That's the reality of the situation. Now, okay, next up. How are foreign fighters reacting to the recent decisions by the new Syrian government? Have they been integrated into the new Syrian army? There are some fighters which have been integrated into the Syrian military who are foreigners, but there are lots of foreigners who are not a part of the military, who are not a part of the government. So there are some here and there are some there. But in all honesty and fairness, no one is pleased about what took place in Suwayda, and everybody has a lot of questions. I think that it's upon Ahmed Shara to quell those growing restive voices and to say, hey, this is who we are, this is what we're doing, this is the direction that we're going in. Get beside me, get behind me, and together we'll make this thing happen. But I think he's going to have to start telling them something. Just to say, I'm the president, sit down and shut up, which is not what he said, but his actions are saying that, I think is a mistake. Next, we've got Mango is Sweet. Do you think a fight with Jews can escalate again? Do I think that if the fight with the Jews can escalate again? I don't see it happening right now because who's going to fight them? Much of the Arab tribes have been pushed back, and the forces of Ahmed Shara were the ones who pushed them back. So who's going to fight them? That's not clear to me. So yeah, that's a major problem. So no, I don't foresee that there's going to be any clashes anytime soon, because I don't see who's going to resist. Well, that's the end of our program here today, brothers and sisters. Jazakumullah khair. Please do send us your question, comment, or concern. My name is Bilal Abdul Kareem. Jazakumullah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.